I've been thinking about this for a few months, pondering whether I should do this, and I've decided that I can't go to my grave potentially knowing where 15 to 20,000 soldiers lay dead in the ground at Towton. So, as a follow-up to the Agincourt video, I've had a change of mind, and I'm going to reveal where they are, or where I think they are. And whether that's the right decision or not remains to be seen, but that's the decision I've took. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you, to the best of my ability, where them lads are. So this is the battle formation at the beginning of the battle. Henry in the north with his forces at the side of Towton to his rear, and then Edward, Duke of York, coming from the south, and then just to his left, Henry's cavalry hidden in Castle Hillwood. I'm not going to dispute the official battle or what happened in it. Everybody knows what happened in it. I'm just going to go along with it. But as the battle changes, I'm going to show you exactly how the battle swung. In the initial engagement, Henry's archers were falling short, so the English were picking those arrows up out of the soil and firing them back, and it was more or less even Stevens through the early part of the battle. Nobody got the upper hand until the failed Henry's cavalry attacked Edward's rear flank, left flank should I say, and that failed, and then Norfolk appeared, and the battle begins to change in Edward's favour, and also the battlefield begins to swing around to the left towards Bloody Meadow, as we'll see in the next aerial shot. In this next aerial shot, you'll see that Norfolk joins, which is Edward's ally. Henry begins to retreat down the hill. You can see the trauma in the soil, as we've discussed at Agincourt. Norfolk begins to push his right flank away from Towton, and Henry starts to, the battle starts to swing down the hill towards Bloody Meadow and Cockbeck, and then on the next slide we'll see how it developed towards Bloody Meadow and Cockbeck. So in the final slide of the battlefield, you'll now see that the battle has totally twisted. Some of the Lancastrian army escaped to the north, including Henry, but the vast majority of them were now trapped in a bog. Everything to the back of them were a bog. It were flooded. There's a Cockbeck. It were extremely swelled. The whole area were a quagmire. And Edward and Norfolk were backing the Lancastrians into that area. They were reluctant to go backwards because they knew that it was certain death if they went in that beck. So there was a lot of killing done in that area, and as we're going to see from the next slide, I'm going to show you where the two main killing areas are in this battle. Right, this is the kill zones. The huge star in the middle, just like in Agincourt, a huge trauma to the soil structure, and the smaller star just above it is an even bigger trauma, from which there's an anomaly which I've marked path 1. That's of huge importance, huge significance. That was sort of mid-battle, the first kill zone, as Edward and Norfolk began to push the Lancastrians back down the hill and start to push them round. There were a lot of killing done in that area. And where that larger path 2 is, where I put that arrow, that is a path, right, that's going to become hugely significant later on in this video. That is a path from which the dead were carried. The smaller path 1 is a smaller path from which the dead were carried, which were left in the soil as a trauma when you're going to be carrying 10,000 men on horses and carts through the soil to the final resting place. The second kill zone, when Norfolk flanked round and began to push the Lancastrians towards Cockbeck and the swamp, there were a big battle there, as you can see in the trauma, in between the 2 parallel lines, second kill zone. That's how it happened. And many men died in the Cockbeck trying to escape. They were laden down with armour, no chance of getting through a swelled beck that were probably 5 metres wide and probably 6 feet deep. And there were thousands of men dead in the Cockbeck, thousands of men dead in the swamp, and a lot of dead men on the battlefield. So what we're going to do now, we're going to concentrate on path 1 and what path 1 means from the small star to a certain area in Towton. So here's path 1 zoomed up, and you can see the star, major trauma. So there's been a major trauma here, probably a site where many men died. And for years, when I've looked at this trauma, I've always thought that the path, which sort of goes off in a northwest direction and enters the meadow just to the left, I've always thought it was the line of retreat for the Lancastrian soldiers when they went towards Cockbeck and drowned in Cockbeck. But when you think about it, soldiers don't retreat in a line. Soldiers retreat, they just run for it individually. There wouldn't be a path. So that path has to be there for a specific reason. And in my opinion, it's where a lot of the dead from that purple star were carried to the grave. And it's left its mark in history as a trauma in that field forever. And so what I did, I investigated it, and I trawled through hours and hours of aerial photography, and then I found it, and here it is. It's another aging court, ladies and gentlemen. An arc, a square, exactly the same. Probably I would estimate between 1,000 and 1,500 men went in this pit and this grave. Probably 300 to 500 tons of displaced soil in this particular region. But it's amazing the resemblance to Agincourt and what happened at Agincourt with Foster Rogner, where you've got this arc of soil and then a pit, and you've got an identical situation in Towton. And when I thought about it for a few hours, the trauma, the path, the significance to Foster Rogner in Agincourt, there's just no argument. You just cannot argue with it. This is the grave of probably maybe 1,500 men from the soil displacement and what we found out in Agincourt. Death Zone 2, which is just above it, I'm going to show you in the next slide where the majority of those guys went. You know, the 2 parallel lines that I drew in Death Zone 2, just above this, you know, just above this region. I'm going to show you in the next slide what happened to those guys and where they're laying. So we'll move on to that. Just north of Burial Pit 1 and Path 1, which you can see in the bottom of the picture, It's kill zone 2, as you can see, as a trauma in the field. Soil structures destroyed. Just to the left, you'll see 2 arcs, almost an oval shape, in the same sort of area as Burial Pit 1, but just a little bit further north, and I'll just mark it here. This is the first time I've ever seen this, where you've got 2 arcs of soil and a burial pit in the centre. I've looked on LiDAR and the burial pit is in the centre, that's a first, because usually you've got 1 arc and a burial pit, but in this case, whether it's another team that's been in charge of this burial, or somebody did it in a different fashion, I don't know. But this is 2 arcs, probably a displacement similar to Burial Pit 1, probably between 1,000 and 2,000 men in it, something like that. And that's Burial Pit 2. And now comes the unenviable task of finding where the vast majority of these poor soldiers lay. 10,000 of them in a single pit. And it took a lot of work and a lot of research, using various tools to be able to find that pit. But I found it, and it's undeniable. So we'll move on to that. But to move on to that, we have to look at path 2. Path 2 is of huge significance. So we'll just go back to that slide of path 2. So here we are back at that slide, the first kill zone, the big star. Larger path 2 as we'll call it, intrigued me for months, years, because I knew it led to something, but I couldn't find it. No matter what I did on Google Earth or old imagery or any type of photography, I couldn't find anything. But it just pestered my mind that this path is leading from a major battlefield at the Battle of Towton, where probably upwards of 8,000 men plus lost their lives, smack in the centre of the battlefield, and it doesn't lead anywhere, this path. And I thought, it's impossible. It's got to be significant. So what I did, I waited till LiDAR, laser imaging covered this zone, and lo and behold, look where it leads. The trench on the left is 275 yards long by 15 yards wide. The soil heap on the right is 150 yards long. Some 2,500 to 3,000 tons of displaced soil were taken out of this trench. I know it's a trench because I've been there and seen it. It's covered by woods, and it's hidden, but not anymore, because LiDAR's shown it. And that path that I'm talking about leads straight to it. And that's what happened to the men on that battlefield. They are in a 275 yard long trench, upwards of 10,000 men in that trench. And I just can't take that to the grave with me. I just can't. Knowing that all them people are in there, and that they should have a memorial recognising what they sacrificed. I just can't do it. So here we are. And on this next picture you'll see that it's been covered in trees. And it were done for a reason. They planted it up for a reason. The trench. To mark where those men lay. And there it is. And I'll overlay the trench over the top of the trees for you, like that. And there it is. Back to the lidar, and that's where they lay. So I've set out I've done what I set out to do. I found where they lay, and that's it. I hope nobody digs them up. I hope that someone puts a memorial there, and I hope it ends in a good way, not a bad way. But there's no point digging and looking for artefacts, because they were stripped of every single artefact. We know that through the records. The locals took everything, the armour, the jewellery, everything. They went in the birthday suits. So there's no point digging it up for those that think it's, those that think it's going to be beneficial to dig them up. There's just no point. So just leave them be. And now you know where they are. Have a good day.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time. Who can say